What's going on, everybody? LK here, back at it again with another video, and today some more Dragon Ball FighterZ for y'all. So I wanted to talk about something that we talk about a decent amount in fighting games. That's actually one of the lazy ways that people say oh, this person is good. It's about frame data and how important it actually is in the game. And the real big thing is how frame data, just because there's a number, doesn't mean things exactly work the way you think it will. If you like all the content I've been putting out, the guides, the match analysis, all the other things, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you already have not. It does help the channel grow. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. So if you're totally new and you don't even know what frames are, frames is a unit of time that games tend to use to say how fast the game is. And frame advantage is really important in fighting games because this determines when you have advantage situations and disadvantage situations. Now, normally people get scared because it means you have to memorize a lot of stuff, you have to memorize all these things about the characters, but one really nice and friendly thing about Dragon Ball is that for the most part, a lot of this information is very homogeneous. A lot of the characters have very similar frame data. And on top of that, there are recurring situations that keep on coming up over and over and over. I'm sure you've run into them. Things like blocking a vanish or blocking a universal overhead. These come up really often, and even at a beginner-ish level, you learn that, oh, I can't press a button right away here. You don't have to know the number specifically. You would just know after the 6M, we can do something at the same time. After I block a vanish, I can't do something right away unless it has invincibility or something special. But also, people really like to pick and choose their spots where they start to care about frame data. Trunks is a really good example of this. So really commonly, people say that he has bad frame data. What do they mean by this? Let's use Broly to compare a little bit. So Broly has, most characters in the game have safe jabs, relatively safe. This says -2, which means that the opponent recovers 2 frames before, but you are also at your jab, your light, right? So you're at the earliest possible stage of your chain. So this makes this point really, really ambiguous. Now, if we use his mediums, so he has his 5M, which is -11. This is extremely unsafe, but again, you can cancel into a bunch of stuff. And you have his 2M. So his 2M is -5. This is a pretty important number. It's given to a ton of moves in this game. It's safe on block. Actually, the fastest moves in this game are 6 frames. Trunks has this. So you could end strings with this move and not get punished, which opens kind of guessing games on whether or not you'll keep on going or reset and peel off. It opens a lot of guessing games here. Now, knowing that, when we compare it with Trunks, both his 5M at -9 and his 2M at -10 are both unsafe, very unsafe. They're both -9 and -10. So if you try to reset with these moves, your opponent can punish you. So here, showing it off. So for example, I will always block. On the other hand, I will always get hit. So this is kind of where we start with the frame data doesn't always tell the entire story. So let's go back to these. So Trunks has an unsafe 5M, but he also has this move, flip. These are essentially jump cancels. So this is a very, very rare tool for a character to be able to go airborne in a block string normally. If you look here, you cannot jump on block at all. But if we use the flip, we can change Trunks' frame data on his moves, making them safe, actually advantageous. So with this, we can add in a bunch of guessing games to kind of mess with our opponent, especially if you're willing to use half a bar. Will you go over? Will you peel off and use JS? Will you just retreat and wait for the opponent to counterattack? There's a bunch of things he can do with the extra frame advantage to threaten the opponent. So usually when characters have unsafe medium moves, they usually give them something to make up for it. I didn't mention heavy moves, but for the most part, these are at the end of the string. Basically, everybody has unsafe H normals. Here's an example of a 2H from Roshi. So here you're basically at the end of the string, so your opponent knows you either have to go into a key blast or do a special move or just peel off somehow, call an assist, do something, because you don't really have options left when you go into your heavy normals. So just keep that in mind. If your character has safe mediums like Broly, it's pretty straightforward, and characters in the game for a long time that have been popular have had generally safe jabs and medium moves. Characters like Bardock were really popular for this reason. Both his 2M and his 5M are both safe on block, so his pressure is way more ambiguous. So with this in mind, Gotenks is another example of a character that has unsafe mediums, but they give him stuff to make up for it. So his 2M, -7, punishable. 5M, -6, punishable. But he has a plethora of tools in order to make up for having unsafe mediums. Between EX hands, which is +1. He can risk donut, which is +5, which is pretty uncommon in this game. He has medium hands, which is +3. And he has his charge 5H, which is +1. So he has a bunch of ways that he can get plus frames despite him not having good mediums on block, so that he can vary his pressure more than other characters. So next, let's talk about travel time. So why does this matter? The real easy example is with a very common tool, Ki Blast. So here you see Ki Blast, it's -4. So it goes back to what we were talking about before, where moves that are -5 or less are safer, so you could use them to reset pressure, be kind of ambiguous with your offense. But Ki Blasts are a little different, and they travel full screen. So at full screen, the -4 Ki Blast is now a +10 Ki Blast. So potentially the type of things that you would do off this full screen Ki Blast would be different than this point blank Ki Blast. 21 shows this off really well. So point blank, she kind of has a guessing game revolving around her 2S, where this is advantageous, but she can't totally pin you down because she throws her 2S backwards. So for instance here, it says I'm +8. The parentheses, remember, is +2, so that's when you land, that's how much frame advantage you have. But I can't like do stuff right away that would reach you and make it like actually threatening. I'd have to play a guessing game revolving around, am I going to air dash in and take my turn back, or I'm going to wait for you to try to do something. At full screen though, this is +20 in the air, so +14. It's heavily advantageous. If you do choose to block this, it's really hard to just do something after. And she's much better at restricting your options. For an example with a physical attack, let's use Teen Gohan, my old friend. We can use his M kick, even though his L kick does this as well. As you saw before, if you do his point blank, he's -11. Punishable, he's kind of far though. Here, probably just a character like Yamcha can probably get him. But if you space it correctly, you can make it -2, so basically safe. This also comes up with his 2M. If you think about what we were saying before, this 2M is quite unsafe. It's -8. We can actually get it to be +1. So keep in mind that being able to hit with a move later can change the frame advantage. Now, as a quick side note, this thing that I said was so good for some characters that they had to nerf it. So with Android 21, she has a really easy example where this will always have the same frame advantage no matter what. This as well. So this is -10 here, and it's -10 here. She recovers according to the explosion. It did not work like this in Season 1, and this move was way better when you used it from full screen. That boy Broly, though, he gets this and this. So next, blocking normals in the air changes the frame data as well. If someone forces you to the ground, then they get an additional 6 frames of block stun. This means a lot because a lot of moves are kind of balanced with this in mind. We can use medium shining slash to show this really easily. So you can see that Trunks goes from +2, which is what it normally is, to +8, which is a ton of frame advantage to have. And usually you only get this much frame advantage from either knockdowns or forcing them down like this or supers. And the last one I want to look at is 6M actually. So 6M is normally 0 on block. So it's going back to what we said at the beginning of the video where most people know when they're starting the game that they can act when they block a 6M. They may not know specifically it's 0, but they could just act. They could do something, press a button, do a super, whatever. But this kind of puts the travel time thing together as well. So the further away you do a 6M, the more frame advantage you'll have. So here I have a little bit extra frame advantage. You can even make strings with this. If you can get this to hit just the right way, you can get a combo that you can't normally get. Okay, hopefully that made sense. I was thinking about this mostly because it seems that people use like frame data to talk about characters kind of conveniently. So I wanted to make sure that I had this point out in mind. There are also way more examples of ways you can change frame data on moves, making them hit differently, stuff like that, but just something to keep in mind. Like, the initial values the game gives you isn't the entire story. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.